There seems to be a memory of a time in my mind, a time that feels like ages ago but really isn't, a time when being young came with what felt like endless possibilities of what you could do and even more possibilities of who you could become when you are older. I don't know, but I guess when you're young, the future feels so certain in ways I can't even begin to comprehend, because when you're young, you're like a free-spirited dreamer. But dreams aren't just dreams, they're the many things that can happen in the future with an attachment of a certain sense of surety. You shoot for the sky and reach for the stars as you dream and make plans about a future that feels so far away yet so real and beautiful. It's funny really, because you dream of a future painted with as many bright colors as you desire without even giving a thought to where the paint will come from. And alongside this childlike optimism is the belief in love. I don't know how it starts or where it comes from, but I guess that's the thing, it's different for everyone. For some, it's a love that is so effortlessly portrayed by two parents that it inspires you to grow up and find someone you can share the same type of love with. For others like myself, it's something about those cheesy-ass romance movies, romance novels about a love that comes so easily and naturally, it soothes you, those love songs that go on and on about a love so addictive, and poems about the kind of love that feels surreal. Something about those Disney fairy tales about a love so inevitably fateful that everything aligns and comes together in order for you to end up dancing in the arms of your knight in shining armor. But as you come down to reality, you find that the boy that is staying next door with his grandparents for the holiday is no angel or Prince Charming or knight in shining armor, that he's just a normal human being living a normal day-to-day life, another speck of dust in the vastness of the universe. But something about this boy makes you feel a certain type of way. Because despite the fact that you only spoke once for the first time that day, you kept thinking about that short interaction you had, replaying the mini conversation over and over. Maybe it's the way he spoke or laughed, but that can't be it. Billions of other people speak and laugh, so what was it? His accent? His charisma? I mean, it was dark out and you barely even saw his face, but there's just something about that boy. But whatever it was, deep down there's no denying that you felt it. That life would no longer be the same for reasons beyond your understanding or control. Because really there's no denying the physical effects that this boy has on you. He makes you feel a little nervous, a little shy, makes your insides feel funny. It is then that the halo falls upon him. All of a sudden it's not just him, it's him. Because there's plenty of other boys in your street, but neither of them awaken the urge in you to be around them, it's him. And there's 20-something other boys in your classroom, but there's just something about him. You didn't choose this, but choice or not, it's happening. All in all, love has never felt more simpler and easier than when you're 9 and you daydream about being married to a boy you've only liked for a week, and how happy you'd be on your imaginary wedding day saying I do to the love of your little life. Something about your first, you know, first crush, first date, first kiss. Something about meeting the love of your life in the most mundane way and going on to spend the rest of your life together. All these little hopes and dreams wrapped up in the sense of innocence that comes with exploring love as a kid. An innocence that people are born with, but only a few somehow get to carry into adolescence and even fewer into adulthood. An innocence so heavily wrapped up in the childlike optimism embodied by the hopeless romantic. Ah yes, the hopeless romantic. The hopeless romantic is defined as a person who holds sentimental and idealistic views on love, especially in spite of experience, evidence, or exhortations otherwise. Originally founded in the 1920s and 30s, the hopeless romantic was a character type in literature and literary magazines used to describe individuals who easily, recklessly, or repeatedly fall in love or chase after love for love's sake, even when it's impractical, unwise, or unseemly. And over the past years, there has been quite a number of definitions, theories, and misconceptions about what kind of a person the hopeless romantic is. And now, more than ever, articles and blog posts listing the traits of the hopeless romantic to help people find out whether they are or are not, and why, if you are, you should not be one. And I was originally going to rant about how most of the misconceptions about the hopeless romantic are highly exaggerated and heavily generalized, but as I kept reading through these articles and cringeworthy Reddit threads, feeling attacked while simultaneously being hit with surges of realizations and an overpowering sense of defeat, I came to the conclusion that I think it's safe to say that it is true. What they say about hopeless romantics, that is. That we're dreamers and our dreams consist of high hopes rooted in the name of I believe in love, and not just any love but real love. You know, happily ever after kind of love. Holding hands in old age kind of love. That our constant search for the one makes us question whether an individual that comes our way or even shows us the slightest bit of attention is our soulmate. A life partner, 1 in 7 billion people who just gets you. You know, someone you have almost everything in common with and tell all your secrets to. You envision and breathe these desires as they set your soul on fire. Being a hopeless romantic is hard to describe because, contrary to popular belief, it's not just about wishful thinking about grand gestures and fantasizing about a fairy tale like life and a fancy wedding in Paris, although those things would be nice, but sometimes being a hopeless romantic just means wanting more than what most people are willing to give. The ever so cringe frustration of living in the 21st century where people would much rather indulge in one-night stands and casual hookups while your soul yearns for connection. True, genuine connection. Because when you're a hopeless romantic, there's just something about the little joys of getting to know a new love interest, picking them apart and admiring the simplest things about them. Something about being with someone whose love you don't have to ask for, a love that keeps showing up again and again in their actions and words, a love that you don't have to worry about slipping away when you're not looking. Something about having someone look at the deepest, darkest parts of your inner being and your wounds and brokenness and imperfection and choosing to love you regardless. Something about the ever-increasing deep desire for intimacy and not just physicality type stuff, but like, I want to know your innermost parts type stuff. Like, show me the ugliest parts of you and I will shower them with grace and compassion type stuff. Like, be whoever you really are and maybe I'll squint or cringe a little, but I promise to keep an open mind and not judge you type stuff. Like, I want to read your mind and see the things that take up space in there type stuff. But ultimately, what makes a hopeless romantic by definition is a strong undying belief in the existence of a single individual out there somewhere who is specifically crafted for them. Something about that constant anticipation as to when and how you're going to meet your special someone. All these desires and passions burning a hole within your heart. What could possibly go wrong? Oh, I'll tell you what could possibly go wrong. The death of the hopeless romantic, like the birth, is not as a result of just one thing. Mostly because no two hopeless romantics are the same and life experiences differ. For some like myself, it starts with unrequited love. You know that one person that is always falling for people that just never like them back? Oh yeah, that's me. And then on top of that baggage is the never-ending cycle falling for an individual for like 2 seconds and then taking like 700 years to get over them. When you throw dating somewhere in there, it takes even longer because what do you mean we were supposed to get married and now we're not? Even though of course we only dated for like a month. Something about that whole process of placing an individual on a pedestal and then being trapped in constant cycles of waiting for a love that once was and hoping it returns, and to eventually realize that it doesn't matter if you wait until the second coming of Jesus, nothing will change how that person feels about you. Yes, even if they once loved you before. And so, jumping back into the uncertain waters of the dating scene, you're told by others around you that there are many fishes in the sea and that you eventually find someone else. But what they somehow forget to mention is that the sea is filled with one too many broken individuals. You know, people that embody a certain level of dysfunctionalism that stems from messed up life experiences that come as a result of living in an unfair world. Oh, and let's not forget the good old family dynamics. Next thing you know, your perception of love and marriage is more distorted than a mirror shattered in 1,000 pieces. A once mellow fairy tale-like dream of a beautiful marriage turns into ashes because truly, do I really want to grow up and experience the same things this beautiful woman of a wife is going through? And if so, for what? At some point, you eventually get hit with the disheartening realization that everyone living a life just as complex as your own is trying to work through childhood trauma and their own personal demons as they unlearn their dysfunctional beliefs and behaviors and learn what works for them. But the thing is, that is just on one side of the sea. On the other side are individuals who swim in their dysfunctionalism without a care in the world. Then you realize that the people whose hearts have been broken before also go out to break hearts themselves, leading to an endless cycle of transferred pain and hurt. A broken reality in which there almost seems no room for fairy tales. Now, the most heartbreaking thing for the hopeless romantic is probably the realization that love is not everlasting. That sometimes people fall out of love with their partners and it's not even because they want to, but that it's out of their control. And this is definitely one of the things I've always had a hard time wrapping my head around, the disheartening realization that your partner could just wake up one day and not love you anymore. That there are times when people choose to walk away rather than try to make things work, and there's nothing more you can do than just let them go, regardless of how hard and painful it may be. This in turn, of course, makes falling in love feel very scary. Somewhere along the way, the excitement of it all is replaced with a deep-rooted fear. Fear of rejection, being played, used, not taken seriously, or my personal favorite, a fear of being too much. You know, too enthusiastic, too crazy, too odd or weird or too naive for your own good. My own version of this fear would be opening myself up for the possibility of failure. I mean, I know that true love exists, whatever that is, but I'm just not willing to take the chances and end up in a failed relationship and worse more, a failed marriage. And then there's the ruse. God, the ruse. Don't text him back too quickly lest you want him to think you're desperate. Make sure to give him the impression that you're talking to more than one guy, and if he's not serious, he'll be replaced in the blink of an eye. You are by no means to double text. If he doesn't ask you out to tell you he likes you first, please move on. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. As a girl, don't like a guy more than he likes you. Act aloof. It helps to keep him interested. Wait for him to activate the first move, first kiss, first date. My goodness. In the end, hopeless romantic or not, we all die a little down that path of connecting and disconnecting from one person to the next in hopes of finding someone, the one. Because somehow, somewhere, through the growth, development, and experiences that come with actually living, it gets a little harder to stay so optimistic and lighthearted about love, romance, and everything in between. Falling in love becomes a little complicated as you navigate your way around the 21st century dating scene while simultaneously trying to protect your heart from the harshness of it all. And that, in my opinion, is what leads to the death of the hopeless romantic. Dying as a hopeless romantic does not necessarily mean losing hope, although sometimes that is the case, but instead it is a shift in the way one goes about the whole soulmate finding process. We are forced to learn to be cautious as we approach matters of the heart, as we learn valuable lessons along the way. Lessons like fighting for love isn't always a guarantee that things will work, and that waiting for someone to finally love you back the way that you love them is romantic and all, but like in the movies, because the real world is wired differently, and that sooner or later you are going to have to move on and maybe try to redirect all that love to thyself. But ultimately, the hopeless romantic is birthed through love songs, cheesy-ass rom-coms, and poems about a love that seems to be out of this world. A love that calms the storms of the soul and yet sets your soul on fire with passion. And ultimately, nothing could ever seem to prepare the hopeless romantic for the reality of what falling in love is really like in the real world. All in all, the eventual death of the hopeless romantic is a series of events involving heartache and the death of a dream and ideals.
I have to focus on the part of me that I'm trying to be.